let's queer up courts. Anti-LGBTQ plus Supreme Court ruling based off case involving fake customer, a Christian graphic artist who the Supreme Court ruled can refuse to make wedding websites for gay couples, was referred to during the lawsuit in a request from a man named Stewart and his husband-to-be. The twist? Stewart says it never happened. The revelation has raised questions about how Lori Smith's case was allowed to proceed with such an apparent misrepresentation, and whether the state of Colorado, which lost the case last week, has any legal recourse. About a month after Alliance Defending Freedom filed the case in Colorado federal court in 2016, lawyers for the state said it should be dismissed partly because Smith hadn't been harmed by the state's anti-discrimination law. Smith would first have to get a request from a gay couple and refuse, triggering a possible complaint against her and a lawsuit. In a February 2017 filing, Smith revealed she had received a website request form submitted by Stewart on September 21, 2016, a few days after her lawsuit was filed. Lawyers for Colorado wrote in a brief to the court saying it did not amount to an actual request and verification proving the authenticity of the customer is not done. Stewart talked to the Associated Press saying he didn't even know his name had been invoked in the case until he was contacted by a reporter for the New Republic. While the revelation cannot change the decision, legal experts are saying that it should have come up in the litigation. And they're absolutely right. It's called standing. Now, would somebody have probably gone to, and we all look for test cases. This was what was called a test case, and you look for the right plaintiff, to go against a law. But it's called standing. And this person didn't have it because there was no one. Now, would someone have filed it? And would the decision probably have been the same? Yes.
Yeah, but they didn't.
But they didn't. And also, this court has kicked the can down the road several times in the last few years because of standing, which means they just chose not to rule on it, which is basically a way of them saying, we're going to let the dust settle a little bit, and then we'll kind of see where we're at. And this completely usurps that process. So the result may be the same, but it may have come a couple years later. It might have been softer. It might have had some other precedent that could have been referred that would have softened it up. So we just really don't know. But we do know this is just devious even by the Republican fascist standards.
You mean different than having new states electors to vote in Congress on January 6th? Different than that standard?
What were you expecting, John?
Right,
well,
exactly.
It's the standing standard.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm curious to the observation you just made. Do you think any of the justices suspected that the standing issue wouldn't be true, that there was any, do you think anyone even crossed their mind? I did not hear a word about this possibility until the New Republic break.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I really don't, because if there's one thing Justice Roberts is trying to adhere to is just the norms of the court, even though it's perhaps the most abnormal court we've had in a long time.
Yeah. History.
Maybe some of their clerks, that sort of like that last line of defense before the justices, they might have thought it, and Gorsuch's clerk may have just gone, no. I'm sure he exists.
I'm not touching this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I, for one, am not surprised that Lori Smith, second runner-up in the Ronna McDaniel look-alike contest,
I just smell
that she got sucked into the web of lies of that Kristen Wagner's hate group. It's a hate group. Alliance Defending Freedom is a hate group. And the worst part is that the revelation of the falsehood involving Stewart doesn't stand a chance of changing the outcome of the decision.
I want to make sure it's clear, while I agree with you on that. One of the things that I think is really important, and John mentioned this in terms of the outcome of the decision, probably no functional difference. But there is something that's at play here that is really important. Standing must be held. Because if we don't have standing, then anybody can do anything they want. And that's exactly what the DeSantis GOP model of the supermajority in Florida has done with book banning. Is all it takes is to anonymously me say, oh, I don't like this book, and anonymously the investigation begins to take place to justify the pull of the book. Standing overcomes that in the court process and the interpretive process. If you're not harmed, you can't claim harm. And that's the big difference here. That's why this is very, very important. Even if it doesn't change the decision, the lack of standing is an important standard to adhere to. Now, they're going to get to the bottom of this. This Lori Smith is in all kinds of trouble. All kinds of trouble. Because they're going to find out, either yes or no, I don't know. But if the first indications look like she did not have a justification, she's been pulled in by, then you're going to buy someone, and she's going to rat that person out to say, okay, yeah, I was one of the electors on January. Here's what I was asked to do. And it'd be the exact same thing. And one final example of why this is important. Everybody said immediately, why not do something? Why not Equality Florida do something on the drag ban? Find it. Do something. You can't. You have to show someone was harmed.
Yeah.
And it's not until Hamburger Mary's files the federal lawsuit that says, whoop, we're harmed. Yep. And we're now in the standing of the justification to stay the drag ban. That's how our laws and our courts work. Yeah. Let them work. And we hope that we'll be dedicated to it. If we still have democracy in America, which we do, we haven't made good steps to it, this process will work. That's why I ask you about Judge Roberts. We have to have confidence that the Supreme Justice of the court is going to say, of course there has to be standing.
And I know we're ready to move on, but where were the lawyers at the beginning of this process? Was this person never deposed? Were there no journalists knocking down Stewart's door?
Nope.
Years in 2017 when this was starting to take so much wrong with this.
We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ+ evening news show, brought to you from Happening Out Television Network. We operate in the same model of PBS and NPR, but for the LGBTQ+ community. We educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community, with more than 100,000 a week watching us on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the story going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.